everybody. Happy Wednesday. It is your friend Wes McDonald joining you live. How is everybody doing? And remember, as always, we love to see where you're watching from. So please do share those in the comments. And we're kicking it old school today. I don't know if you can see down on my little thing there, the old school tape. Does anyone remember mixtapes? I know some of you will. My wife is an aficionado of mixtapes, and we were talking about it yesterday. So I was preparing for this episode and said the trickiest thing and also the most exciting thing is when you were trying to get ready to hit that record button, just waiting for the DJ on the radio station to shut up so you could just get the song. And she was apparently pretty good at it. So one of the things we're going to talk about today is the fact that this whole idea of subscription services, particularly with what we're talking about with flat rate, is actually nothing new. And in fact, I'll start sharing my screen now with a little presentation that I put together for you. And give me 1 second so I can do that. There we go. And I want to kick it back old school a little bit. It's funny, when I was in high school, you wouldn't know it now, but when I was in high school and in my early university years, I was actually a fitness instructor, and I worked at a local gym in London, Ontario. And I can remember that job very well because you weren't just a fitness instructor, you're also a salesperson. You're trying to get people to subscribe to their gym membership. And this was back, obviously, in the late 80s and early 90s, and they had already discovered the benefit of subscription services, right? So they knew the numbers. They knew how many people would sign up for a gym membership. It'd be pretty busy at the beginning of the year. So January was always busy, and then it would slow down. So they always oversubscribed to make sure that, as people started falling off the scale, that, they, no pun intended, that, that they were making money hand over fist. That has changed. I do have the old school version here with a couple of examples. Gold's Gyms was one of my favorites. Good Life Fitness, another Canadian brand. And of course, in the States, you've got a whole bunch of, other ones there as well, right? But even organizations like Peloton, which has a bicycle, and, it's funny. I'm a flat rate person, and I still am amazed at the business model that, they sell you this expensive bike, and then you pay for a subscription service to join other people and to get the content for fitness and everything else. And people pay for it like crazy. Peloton is one of the most successful companies in the fitness industry. Not to be left behind by our friends over at Apple, who also now have their Fitness Plus program, which you can pay for, these services and get, guided workouts, etc. Right? So what's old school has become new school, for fitness as well. Noom is another one for people that are looking to lose weight, that they can pay for a subscription for, Noom to be able to be told what to eat. So people literally pay for anything when it comes to their fitness goals. One that I really love, and this is quite common. Everyone uses a cell phone, obviously, and we have long since moved away from, a model where we paid for different aspects. I can remember when we had to pay for texts. Every text that you sent or received, you would pay for. And then eventually they just charge you for texts that you were sending. You would pay for your data usage. You would pay for, the calls that you made, etc. Most phones, I mean, those programs still exist, but most phones are in a true flat rate system where you don't pay for the phone. You don't pay for the data usage. You don't pay for the texts, anything except for a flat monthly fee. And it's predictable. And I'm not saying it's cheap, because I know we have a family of 4 and we have 4 devices, which we're paying for every month. It's actually a pretty big expense in this household, and probably yours as well. But it's budgetable. We know every month exactly what we have to spend, on our cell phone plans. And that hasn't always been the case. And I know that there are situations where that's still not the case. But for the most part, this has moved to a pure, subscription model, which is pretty cool. I don't know if anyone used one of those Motorola bricks, but I had one and I absolutely loved it. It was the heaviest thing in the world. Technically not the most portable phone, even though it was portable, but truly a cool thing. And then obviously on the BlackBerry and Nokia and some of the others, right? So some cool technology. And of course, with all the smartphones now, with iPhone or any of the Samsung devices and everything, it's all subscription, regardless of the carrier that you're using. This is an interesting one. Netflix, I always use as an example when I'm talking to people about things for subscription. I want to take a minute to talk about this, because this is usually when I get the pushback of, well, that's different. Netflix is an online streaming service. They don't have any, physical costs, like we do in the print world. we have toner and we have consumables and parts and everything else. And it couldn't be farther from the truth. So you may not see the parts and the consumables that Netflix has to take into account when they offer these streaming services for a flat monthly rate, but they do. All of these movies, and even in the cell phone world, right? All of their services, they have data that they have to pay for. That in the Netflix world, they have servers and storage and bandwidth and stuff that they have to pay for. But they have worked out the numbers on what the average user will consume, and they've based their flat rate model on that. And the truth is, in the world of managed print, it doesn't have to be any different, right? It's data. Once we have the data, we can start making better decisions. Netflix actually started off with real consumables as the way we would think about them in their old mail service. I don't know if people remember. Leave your comments if you ever used the Netflix service where they shipped you DVDs. I love that. You would get my membership. I was allowed 4 DVDs at a time, and you only had 4. So if you wanted another 2 new ones or 4 new ones, you'd have to send the other ones back in the mail. And once they received them, then they would ship you your shiny new DVDs. So cool service. And that was the first example of a flat rate subscription model for, sort of media. And that was a long, long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. Certainly nothing new in their world whatsoever. Now, I do have an and there. You can't see it behind the cassette tape, but there is an and it's a pretty big and, because obviously, the model, once it was successful for Netflix, everyone else is going to jump on board. And look at all these players now, right? So I'm just going to have a look at this and try and figure out which ones I subscribe to. So I definitely have Netflix. I have Prime Video. I am Showtime for sure. Apple TV Plus, HBO Max, YouTube I actually pay for as well. The Disney Channel, because I'm a huge Star Wars fan. It's the only way I can get my fix, and all the Marvel Universe stuff as well, right? So this has absolutely exploded. That the days of the DVD, I would argue, even just a little while ago, the only thing that kept me, purchasing media was because I'm a big cinephile. I love watching things in HD. So I've got a 4K projector, 4K UHD player. I love the sound quality. I love the image quality. But guess what? All these streaming services are starting to offer those now, and more programming is coming online as 4K UHD. For anyone that's a cinephile like I am, that's pretty cool. And it also means that I don't have to buy, things anymore, that I, simply subscribe to these channels, to get them, right? So I'd be curious to know which ones you subscribe to as well. Didn't work out for everybody. This is one that I was really rooting for back in the day when they started. If anyone remembers MoviePass, the idea was a subscription service for actual movie theaters. And the model was actually quite genius. And again, based on the same premise as Netflix and, other things, that once you understand the usage habits of people, once you have that data, then you can come up with a subscription plan, to be able to serve the masses as they go to movies, right? So if you go to the movie theater as many times as you want or as little as you want, you pay the same, monthly fee. I think one of the mistakes there's a few, but one of the mistakes that MoviePass made was that they didn't really work with the theaters. And so I think there was a little jealousy on the model that was going on. And the second thing that really put them in the grave was obviously this pandemic. Once the movie theaters and stuff started shutting down, there was no way they could survive. Like, talk about a model killer. Leave it to the pandemic to teach us all new lessons, right? And we've certainly learned a lot of those lessons in the, in the managed print world as well. The other place is music. And, I have a bunch of CDs and I loved CDs, and now I don't use them anymore at all. So I subscribe to YouTube Music, which was previously Google Play Music. And I know some of you might subscribe to Spotify or Amazon Music, etc. I'd actually use Amazon Music in my car because I've got one of those little Bluetooth adapters that actually gives me Amazon access in my car. Great for, for music. At home, it's mostly YouTube Music, but, the point is I pay for subscriptions for that. And I listen to music all day. So my wife's a retailer. If she's at the store, she's got a soundtrack going. What she's streaming when I'm here at home and I'm editing videos and working on content, I'm listening to music all the time. And the great thing is the selection, the ability to find any piece of music out there in the world that you want to. all for predictable monthly spend. And again, I just want to make it clear that the providers for these services, they still have consumable costs, which are variable at a cost level, just like we do in the managed print world. So every time a song plays or a playlist goes or an album, plays, that there are costs which go back to the artists. And, we can get into the argument about whether that's enough or too little. That's a whole other episode and not my expertise, but they have those costs. And what they have to do is work out the math on, consumption to make sure that they're actually being profitable overall, right? So sound familiar? Sounds a little bit to me like the Office Equipment Channel in print. Well, they didn't all survive. So Napster, I miss you. That was one of the, the first services that I used for streaming music. And unfortunately, for, a lot of folks out there that were using it, they were not using it in necessarily the best ways, and it's gone. So not all of them survive. But I think the important lesson here, when we kind of look at, something like Napster, is that the other ones that did survive learned lessons from, kind of those early days, and are hugely and wildly successful with it, paying attention to the buying trends of users. And sometimes I think in the managed print world, I know I've talked to people that have either tried, delivering managed IT services or cybersecurity services or a flat rate offering, weren't successful, and then say the model doesn't work, it's dead. And of course, as we know, that mistakes can be made along the way as long as we're learning from them. And that once the genie is out of the bottle, just like music and videos and cell phone service and everything else, there is no putting that genie back. And I was reading an article, actually, Mitch Philby shared it, and I think it was shared from Lexmark in Australia. And one of the things that they, had said in the article was that there's this huge pent-up demand at a consumer level, at the buyer level, for flat rate management services. That the demand far surpasses any availability in the marketplace to satisfy those needs. And that, to me, smells a lot like opportunity. Now, some of the other areas where subscription and flat rate models have really taken hold, I do have Google up there. So I'm a big Google user for mail services, etc., at least for my consulting practice. I also have Office 365 for all of my document creation. So for my Word documents, Excel, PowerPoint, I prefer it. I started actually using Google Cloud Services and then moved over to Office 365 because I quite enjoy it. And I know that most of you out there in office locations are probably starting to use that as well. And there are huge benefits to it. Let me tell you, when I had to upgrade to a new computer because my last one died, the fact that I could actually just put in my username and password, it automatically synced with my new computer, all of the documents that I've ever created since using Office 365. And I cannot tell you how nice that is when you're changing equipment or upgrading equipment. Gone are the days of, I still have my computer, the old one, plugged in so I can access, things that aren't necessarily backed up. And in the old days, that would have been my my film creations, my projects. And you'll notice up here that I have an interesting one. My brother's a videographer by trade, and Adobe Premiere, although it is still an application that you have to download, software as a service typically is thought of as a cloud offering where, everything's moved into the cloud. And that's not always necessarily the case. Like with Office 365, I'm actually doing a lot of local document creation, which is simply synced with the cloud. Premiere, which is a high-end video editing platform, their model is that you still have the software on your computer, but you're paying a subscription for it. So there's a key that if you stop paying every month or, yearly or whatever your subscription is, that they can lock it down. My brother was not happy about that at all when it started. But like a lot of people over time, he absolutely loves the subscription service now. And of course, I do have our little duck buddy over there. Shout out to StreamYard. That's actually the platform that I use for doing these live streams. And that is another monthly based subscription service. Very predictable. I can use it as much or as little as I want to. I do a weekly live stream. I do lots of video recordings for my YouTube channel, et cetera, using the platform, but it's not variable. And can you imagine if it was? I can't even imagine if it was. I don't think anyone out there could imagine a streaming service as being something that you paid for, with a variable cost. And again, I know that StreamYard just announced that they have unlimited or lifetime recordings that, you can have. In the past, they only gave you a certain amount and then you had to start moving them off and download them onto your PC. But now that is unlimited and it's free. So check that out if you're using StreamYard, not even for live streams, but just to record your interviews, etc., that you can save that stuff there. So yeah, software as a service or application as a service, whatever you want to call it, that this has completely moved to a subscription model. And if there's anyone out there that's still buying software and paying, maintenance, remember that you pay, roughly 30% of the acquisition cost of the software every year to make sure that you would continue to get updates and, the most recent version, right? Well, those days have gone bye-bye. Well, gaming's another one. And I'm not as big a gamer as I used to be, but man, I used to love playing video games, and a big shout out to my friends that still spend quite a bit of time on it. But that was another consumption-based model based on titles. So every time a new game come out, you would buy it and you would play it. And if you were a big gamer, that meant you spent a lot of money. And if you were, only a casual gamer, that means you didn't spend very much money at all. But of course, all these services are moving into subscription as well, right? My son is a big Steam player. Big shout out to Steam, and they've done an amazing job of making this kind of subscription, a reality. They were the first ones to bring it online. Stadia, obviously, Xbox Game Pass, and PlayStation Now, and others. And again, each and every one of these titles that they're streaming through this subscription service, they have consumables, they have to pay the game companies, etc. It's just data, and we have data. So yeah, some other fun ones, right? Loot Crate, Stitch Fix, HelloFresh. I actually have a subscription to a fishing box company. They send me brand new lures every month. I haven't been fishing very much lately because I've been pretty busy, but nonetheless, I still get my boxes and I still get my stuff, and I never complain about it because, you do run out of, tackle. And just like any other sport, it's nice to get some new stuff to play around with, right? And Dollar Shave Club's another great example where they have figured out a way to offer, subscription service for just about anything. And these are not the same as what we would do in the flat rate world for managed print, certainly not, or other areas. But they have figured out the model. And that's all we have to do now is figure out the model and make sure that we're applying the model to best suit our business. And of course, we'll help you to do that. We've talked about that. And you can certainly reach out to me if you want to see how we do that. This is an interesting one, and this is not old school. We're definitely moving into the new school world now. And I'm just amazed at the number of auto companies that are offering subscription services so that, instead of paying separate, for insurance or the car and having a commitment, paying for break fix, all of that stuff is gone, right? And it started off as the high-end car companies. So if you look at, I think Audi was the first one that I saw. I'm not sure that they were the first one, but then BMW and others. And now, though, you start seeing it coming downstream into companies like Hyundai, which has typically been a value-based, automotive offering in our world, right? So it's really neat to see that because once you start seeing some of the companies that provide more economical cars moving into that model as well, then we can see that going mainstream. And you want to talk about a tough one to figure out. Imagine, that for, automobiles, right? These are big, expensive items. Driving habits are completely across the board different for every person that gets behind the wheel. Some better than others, but look at it. There we are. So just on this page alone, I'm sure there's a ton of others. You can let me know if I've missed, which ones I've made. I do that Canvas. It's kind of more like an agnostic, version where they will, be able to help you with an all-inclusive for whatever kind of car that you want. And I don't really know them that well, but I'm certainly going to do some more research on them, because wouldn't that be neat? You have one car for 6 months, decide that you don't feel like driving a sports car. Now you need a pickup truck for another 3 months, and then you're bored of the pickup truck. So why not get a stretch SUV or whatever, the world's your oyster. This actually gets me very excited to think about, this idea for, being able to have a car under a subscription service. And I've always been on the fence with this one, right? Like I own both of the cars that I have now. Well, I guess I'm a 3-car owner because my son's car, which we got him, and that comes with its, own benefits that they're assets, which I'm not sure they really are. But you got to pay for things when they break. You got additional costs. Unlike leasing a car, traditionally, which is an awesome option as well. You might pay a little bit of a premium, but you don't have to worry about any of those things, right? And then this model, which includes even more of the insurance, and I think what's really cool is the flexibility to be able to move in and out of cars on a more frequent basis. So flat rate to the world, man. Cars, bring it. I found this one interesting. Doing the research, looking at the fact that some of the airlines are getting into this now, and although this is not mainstream, I have seen it done with Air Canada. Air Canada has a flight pass for their more frequent flyers, in which they pay a fixed monthly fee for air travel. And then this new company, I've never seen them before, but Surf Air, offering starting at $200 a month to join their club, and then they have different membership levels and everything else. And flat rate in our world on the managed print side can be very much the same, that you can have different levels of subscription services depending on what the customer is looking for. All right. Managed IT services is another one. And this is not new anymore. It's crazy. This is where I got the whole idea for flat rate for managed print in the first place, was looking at the transformation that they had gone through. And they used to be, anyone that provided IT services was doing break fix. They were doing it on a time and materials basis. And then some people started moving into doing the subscription service. People said they were crazy. You can't do that. You've got server parts, you've got this, you've got, X, Y, Z. And then somehow the model was worked out. And again, it came down to numbers and math, right? Just understanding how to do these things. So for remote monitoring and management, certainly the cloud has helped accelerate a lot of these things, because a lot of the services that we offer now are cloud-based versus, on-prem, but nonetheless, they mastered it. And it is moving into device. I know that some people watching this would have thought there for a second, it's like, well, hold on a minute, the devices, the physical devices aren't necessarily included in those costs. Well, that's changing too. So that, if you look at a company like NEC, which basically allows you to select whatever your device is, you build your system, it prices out as you go along the way, and then you check out. And then for 24 months, you've got a subscription contract, fixed, predictable, etc. And that in 2 years, you can actually look at a new device, that you're eligible for a new device. So very much like what we've done in the cell phone market. And this is becoming much bigger in our world. The devices and servers for lots of things, including things like jet engines, including heavy equipment, including you name it, that people are starting to move to these services, where people are subscribing for outcomes versus necessarily buying things, right? So it's kind of a big deal. And that brings us to managed print services. So obviously with Flat Rate Certified, we can help you to, build your own model. And like I said earlier, referencing, my good friends down in Australia, Mitch Philby and Lexmark, there is pent up demand, and they're looking for someone to be able to deliver on that. And the customers that we work with are delivering on that. And just like in the early days of managed print, the best time to make money, to make hay, to get that land grab is early on in the model. So if you're the kind of organization that wants to wait until you see people doing it in the marketplace, then you're going to miss a huge amount of opportunity in the meantime. The market's ready. You need to get your offering ready, and we can help you. So just reach out to Ken and I. We make it very simple. We can either look at your flat rate program if you've got an existing one, to be able to help you to get flat rate certified with that existing program. We can help you build it from the ground up, or we can just have a conversation with you and help you with different aspects of your business that maybe you're not as good with on the flat rate side of it, sales or marketing, or Ken's expertise in the service world. So certainly I encourage you to do that. And that's what I have today for you, folks. So just wanted to look at the old school. Nothing is new. No such thing as a new idea. What we're trying to do in the managed print world with flat rate is to really do the same thing that all these other industries that we've looked at today have done. And it's all done with data. It's done with expertise, and both of those exist. So reach out to me. Would love to help you. And until next time, remember to keep learning, and we'll talk to you next Wednesday. Cheers, everybody.